Is astrology a guide to aid us in mastering the universe? This is the Cosmic Community Podcast with Galactic Ambassador Stacey Dredd. My special guest today, I'm very, very happy to be here with EILEEN Locke. How are you doing today, EILEEN?
I'm awesome. It's great to be back on the radio. I love radio.
You have a lot of radio experience.
I do, actually, ever since the 80s.
That's great. So you mentioned KBND. What were the other places?
I've been on all of those, the communication, whatever the name of their company is now, with KBND and Twins and all of them, and Quack. And I've actually been on KBOV once, long time ago. So, and then I also had my own program on Blog Talk on the internet up until about a year and a half ago. So 15 years on there. So yeah, lots of radio experience.
And you also have a huge social media following. Like, you've created this little pocket of the world for yourself on social media. Can you give a little bit of just information on like your weekly and your monthly programs that you have?
I do. I'm very active on Facebook. Is my spot where I land. I don't really do much on Instagram or the other ones, but Facebook is my thing. I have a daily that you can get there called The New Perspective, which is a two sentence every day based on where the planets are. And then I write a monthly one that's the new perspective for the month. And then I also do a video that is weekdays. Every month, the topic changes. And we start that out with information about where the planets are. Then we take a new topic every month that we work on. This month, it's trusting your intuition. I also bring in every day, we set up, crystals and gemstones that will be helpful for, working through these processes. So it's a lot. And all of that's free, which is delightful. I love when we can offer the free stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing that we can offer this the way that we can. And I'm sure that you've gotten a lot of, feedback from your listeners, as you said, just how many years? 50 years? And maybe even some of the same listeners you still have, people following you that whole time.
I have people who have definitely for the whole time I've been in Bend, since I got here in 1984. And I have people who joke that they used to get my new perspective when it was just on my answering machine, before I even had a computer.
That's amazing. You actually had astrology on your answering machine?
And I still have it. When you call my number at home, you can get the new perspective with my voice talking it. And I have people who like to call that because they say, once they hear my voice, it reminds them of all the things that I've told them. And they just, from hearing me say it out loud, it's really nice for them. So yeah, they can call me at home. And I've worked it so that it doesn't ring, so it's not interfering with my day. And so all day long, my phone will ring, or not ring, but I can see the answering machine comes on, and people will just call and listen to the new perspective for the day and then hang up and go on their way.
And it's just like you're trying to offer what you have, which is some knowledge about the astrology, maybe some insights into how to work with the energy, and you're doing it every way that you possibly can by even just putting it on your own answering machine.
Pretty much. I'd like to find different ways that we can reach people, and especially for free. I mean, I am available, for donation, doing private sessions and things like that. And my monthly people oftentimes will make donations to my One Heart Ministry. And so I'm always grateful for that. But I basically am willing to just share as much as I can.
Yeah, I feel that, because I was telling you that when I first developed the idea for just to have this show here on KPOV, that I had no idea what I was doing, and I really didn't even feel like I was the worthy candidate to be doing it, but I felt really strongly, my intuition and everything. And then as soon as I mentioned it to the station, boom, I had the time slot that I even wanted, and it just all came together too perfectly. And I have to just give you a little bit of background on the name Galactic Ambassador. I call myself Galactic Ambassador Stacey Dredd. And you probably don't remember, but I got a reading with you with a friend of mine. We split an hour. It was the very first time that I met you. And it's a friend who I don't really talk to anymore, but I thank her so much for introducing me to you. And so anyways, she had the first half hour, and it was like peach pie, and there was some amazing things going on. And it was the first time I'd ever seen an intuitive reading or an astrological reading, which you kind of do both together, and then it was time for my half hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I saw that first half hour and it was like, oh my gosh, what's she going to have for me? And so you were like, yeah, wait a second. What's your date of birth again? What's your name? Whatever. And then you took a couple of seconds off, click, click, click. I could hear you on your computer, getting my date in there just right. And then there was a break. And then you came back and you said, well, hello, my little galactic ambassador.
Isn't that interesting? I was just thinking that because we were talking here today, and when you told me your birthday, I said, well, your sun sign is connected to the galactic center, which had been the basis for that statement, that you literally are a galactic ambassador.
I really truly took that as
I love that.
a true statement. And like, you don't know where some of these things are coming from sometimes, but you have to follow the feeling. So I'm really glad that I followed my galactic ambassador ways and was able to be here. And having you on the program right now is like a full circle. It's coming full circle for me.
That's delightful.
So thank you very much for naming me the galactic ambassador. I appreciate that. And so, let's get into the astrology. So we have this week a little bit quieter of a week as far as planetary events go. And I was listening to your Cosmic Lunch Break just a couple days ago, and you were talking a lot about something that you call breather days.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me about the Cosmic Lunch Break, because I didn't mention that. And it is, again, a video that I do every Sunday at 8 a.m. And, of course, it's archived. And I'll talk about all the, what's happening each day. And a breather day is when you have no planetary aspects. There's still lunar aspects, but no planetary aspects. And when we have planetary aspects, which typically we'll have them and have another one and then have another one, and these are where we see our events. And sometimes, we get an event and it's like, oh, we get an impact from that, but then we get another event the next day, so we don't have time to address what just happened yesterday. And so when we get these breather days, it's a chance to revisit whatever we've had to put on the shelf. We kind of bring it back down and say, okay, today I'm going to process what I've been learning lately. Or if you have not had to shelf stuff, sometimes what will happen during a breather day is our other stuff starts coming up, our insecurities, our doubts, our worries, because planetary aspects get our attention. And so if we have nothing to get our attention, we ruffle through
something in there a little bit,
drawers and find something to look at. And a lot of times it will be those things that we've buried or that we just didn't want to address. And so this week we have 5 in a row. Today is the first one, and then we'll have them all the way through Saturday. And then we'll have an aspect on Sunday, which is a Sun-Neptune conjunction, which was very dreamy and kind of vague also. And then we have another breather day right after that. So that's a lot of space. A breather day also will create space for whatever we just did to ripple out. Because again, nothing new came along. And so whatever just happened is still happening until we get to another aspect.
Sure. Yeah. And so let's just talk about something that just happened. We just had the planet of Venus move into a new sign on Monday, March 11th here on the Pacific West Coast, because that's where we are. And those are the dates and times that we're going to be using today. So you mentioned that Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. And I'd like you to talk about what it means for a planet to be exalted in a sign.
Well, we have planets in their home sign, whatever's their natural rulership, and for Venus it's typically Libra. But we also have a chance when it goes into what's exalted, which means it can be at its highest level. And so it's literally, Venus is love and money, and so it's literally love at the highest level. And we get a chance to really expand out. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and so there's a lot of completion that happens during this time where we're learning to love everything. And with those breather days combined, I've really been inviting people to let this be love yourself at the highest level. I sort of proclaimed this, self-love week, so that we can really focus on ourselves and love at the highest level, whatever that is for you.
And this feels like the perfect time to bring more love to the self, because we are dealing with all this Chiron, right? The wounded healer, our own immortal wounds, and it's tough work. It's not easy. We have the North Node in a conjunction with Chiron right now. I've been talking a lot about it on the show as this opportunity. It's in Aries. It's in the sign of Aries, so it's in the first sign of the zodiac, we're starting new things. We're taking new beginnings, being brave and confident and kind of trying to take some steps forward. And this is the North Node, things we're trying to move towards in our life, things we're trying to bring in, things we're trying to highlight and kind of like bring more of it into our life. And so you've got new beginnings with wounds and trying to bring things in. It sounds to me like a step up for healing.
Yeah, it's a lot of opportunity for that. The North Node, the nodes, wherever there's a North Node, there's also a South Node, exactly opposite. And it's like a dragon. The North Node is considered the head of the dragon, and the South Node is the tail of the dragon. And so the tail is like where you've been. And from a karmic standpoint, the South Node is the things that we've done in other lifetimes that are out of balance. And so then the North Node is giving us the invitation to do something to bring our lives back into balance. So the South Node right now is in Libra. And so it's, always thinking about other people, making other people more important. But by going into Aries, it's like, think about yourself. Be resilient. Aries is all about resiliency. And with Chiron in Aries, which has been there now for a couple of years, and then the North Node catching up to it like this, the Chiron is saying, what is it in your life that you thought you'd never be able to get over? And Aries is like, well, something about yourself, but also the attitudes about new beginnings. So oftentimes when we have a new beginning, there's got to be an ending too.
Right. Yes.
So
which is painful.
Yeah.
There's grief behind it.
Yes. We have wounds around our new beginnings. But on the same note, God bless those new beginnings, because they will move you forward. And with that head of that dragon right there too, bringing wisdom and saying, come on, keep going, start fresh, celebrate what's new, but also celebrate yourself. And again, with the self-love, the Venus at the highest level. These, again, it's so fun because when you do astrology, we can do sun sign astrology, but more fun than that is when you take all the planets. It's like soup, you've got this big bowl of all these different things and they all blend together. And it's I just love it. There's a reason I've done it for over 50 years.
Well, can we just say that some of the soup is like, maybe another person's flavor or another person's flavor, right? Like we have soups of all different ratios and styles here. And I guess that's kind of the thing behind chemistry, chemistry, energy, like not everybody's energies mix. Not everybody has chemistry, and it's like not everybody likes the taste of everybody's soup.
Well, yeah. And with the Aries energy, it's a fire sign. And so fire signs and air signs, which your fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And then your air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So that's compatible. Those signs are all going to go, yay, I'm loving this energy. Now, earth signs and water signs, not so much.
Right.
If you're a water sign, which is Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, or an earth sign, which is Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, they're like, yeah, I don't really want a new beginning. I kind of liked it the way it was. Now you're bringing up, you want me to move on, and I kind of liked where I am. The water signs tend to cling to the past. Earth signs tend to want to hold things steady. And the Aries is like, come on, get up and move that mountain. Move and go do something else. So yeah, one man's yummy is somebody else's yuck.
Yes, exactly. But I want to get to know a little bit more about EILEEN and just about how you found out that you wanted to be an astrologer, how you found out about your own clairvoyant skill set and just about how that came to you. Like, how did the universe communicate with you? Yes, you are going to do this now.
Well, as far as the clairvoyance, I was born a veil baby. And this is a child who's born with a sack over her face. So she gets all my other sensories stimulated before my visual. And the doctor actually told my mom when I was born in 1953 that was a sign of a psychic child. Now, as far as the astrology, it's kind of interesting because my parents were interested in it. And when I was 9, my father actually built a telescope. He took us kids out into the front yard, pointed it up at the sky, and it just so happened that Saturn was at a really good spot, and he showed me the rings of Saturn when I was 9 from my front yard. And then went on to show me the moon and Venus and Jupiter and how the moons move around Jupiter. So I was exposed to the planets at a very early age. Now, I didn't grow up to become an astronomer, but I became an astrologer. And I just, quite honestly, don't remember when I learned I was an Aquarian. I just always remember being one.
I love that the first planet you saw was Saturn, which was the traditional ruler of Aquarius.
It is.
That's fun.
And I also have Capricorn on my chart, which is also the ruler of Saturn.
No wonder those wings were just waiting for you to peer at.
Yeah, I really feel like my father was sort of nudging me to remember, and he was a Pisces, and so he was also very intuitive. He had a lot of spiritual studies in his background. And my mother was just really open-minded. I mean, she took me to have my handwriting analyzed when I was 3.5.
Wow. And you do that on your channel. I've heard you talk about your handwriting.
Oh, yeah.
And how a person's handwriting can just say so much about them as a person.
Oh, yeah. And the letters in your name. The letters in your name determine your personality. I mean, it's amazing. That's a whole nother. I have lots of things in my bags of tricks.
I know you do. I've been following you for many years, and I know that I've asked for repeats of certain things, and you're like, nope, sorry, we're not actually going to go back. We're going to move forward.
That's the Aquarian lifestyle.
You're going to have to go back and repeat that stuff on your own. I'm not doing that with you. Okay, EILEEN. Hey, that's okay. It's good for you to set your own boundaries and to encourage other people to reach out of their own comfort zones. And I know that you've done that to me multiple times over the years. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to step up and do it because there's no other person who's going to do it for me. But if people are just like really floored by what you're saying and like want to get a hold of you, EILEEN, can you give just a little of your contact information? We'll do it again at the end, but I want to give people that a couple of different times during the show.
Sure. You can call me at 541-389-1159, and you'll get the new perspective when you call there. And when you call, I screen all my calls. So if you're calling and trying to contact me, just leave a message. And if I'm there, I'll pick it up. If not, I'll call you back right away.
What's the phone number again? Because I'm going to write it down so that I can call and just get this new perspective on your answering machine sometime.
541-389-389 1159.
Awesome.
And my email is oneheart, ONEHEART, @bencable.com.
Oh, I know that email.
And you can follow me on Facebook under EILEEN Locke.
So what do you see as some of the key points coming up during these next two eclipses that we have? You have some charts printed out, and we have the first one on March 25th, and then the following one's going to be on April 8th.
Yes.
The first one is the lunar eclipse. The second one's the solar eclipse.
Yes, the first one is a penumbral lunar eclipse, and what that means is only a partial eclipse, that the moon's only going into a little bit of the shadow of the Earth. And it's interesting because moving up to that, the few days going into it, there's going to be a Venus-Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So a lot of decisions being made, and it'll still be in effect when we have our eclipse. It's actually the full moon. And full moons are, I liken the full moon to like reaching the top of the mountain. And it's a time to kind of give an overview of your life. And so with the Venus-Saturn mixture, it's like, how are my relationships? How's my relationship with myself? Is there something that I need to be done with? Because it's all happening in Pisces there. Also, we have the Chiron North Node conjunction. And again, in the couple of days moving into it, there'll be a Mercury Chiron conjunction. So basically, North Node, Chiron, and Mercury are all sitting within range of each other. Mercury is our communication. Chiron, as we've talked about earlier, is the healing of old wounds. And so it's like, okay, I'm at the top of the mountain. I realize maybe I'm done with some stuff, but I also want to give a chance to overview and take a look at what do I want to do next. And there's been conversations that have happened in the week moving into that. About new beginnings. And so there's like new beginnings and endings. Anytime we have Pisces and Aries, even though if you look at an astrology wheel, they're next to each other. If you look at it on a linear level, Aries is the first sign, Pisces is the last. So they really couldn't be any farther apart.
I've never thought about it on a linear perspective like that.
And so when you're dealing with planets in Pisces and Aries at the same time, this is a threshold because you're moving from completion to new beginning. And you're going from this point of wisdom of, oh my God, I'm at the last sign of the zodiac. Everything makes sense. And everything's, I can see it. It's clear. I'm at the top of the mountain. I can see clearly. And then there's this Aries energy that's like, well, except that I got this new thing I want to do, and I'm not really sure. I've never really done it before. And so we have the wise person and the child at the same time coexisting. And that's where we get the resiliency after the ending, which it's a saving grace in a lot of ways. We also have the beginnings during this first eclipse, the beginnings of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction.
Yes.
They're within 5 degrees, and they'll be closer during the second conjunction. They'll be only 2 degrees apart by the second conjunction. But Jupiter is opportunity, Uranus is unexpected change. Uranus is an unusual planet because all of our planets have a north-south axis, like we have a North Pole, South Pole, and they backspin against the direction that they orbit around the sun. Uranus, on the other hand, lays on the side and it rolls the same way that it orbits, which makes it very different than any other planet. It means that, yesterday that wasn't happening, today it is. It's something changed. The truck came through the front door. Things change and there's no going back. And so Jupiter with it brings opportunity for big changes and unexpected and also enlightenment. Jupiter is expansion and abundance, and Uranus is enlightenment, waking up. And so there's all this growth and opportunity for change and awakening that's really for both of these charts, both of these eclipses. The second eclipse is a new moon, which is, again, new beginnings. And we have a Mars-Saturn conjunction instead of the Venus-Saturn. And so, again, Saturn, a lot of Saturn action for both of these. And Saturn is decisions and lessons learned, And so the combination of the Saturn with the Uranus is learn the lesson, make the change. And so these are they're coexisting. But the Mars-Saturn is our physical body. And it's interesting because all this Aries, this Sun, Moon, North Node, Chiron, Mercury, all in Aries, there's like a huge stellium, is saying, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And the Mars-Saturn is saying, wait for it, kind of some temperance. And so our brains and our emotions and our communication, and we've got so much that's like raring to go. And our body's like, okay, we'll do that, but just take your time. And it's like, those are almost like an oxymoron, where you're like...
Especially with Mars and Saturn, like those two planets' energies are kind of opposite, really.
Yeah, it's hurry up and take your time. It's like, how do we do that, And I think it's just saying, know that the new beginning is available, know that, and know what it is that you want. And then make a little bit of a plan. Listen to your intuition, plan it out just a little bit.
So, if somebody out there was to be having their 40th birthday on the Aries Equinox, the March 25th date, this is a 40th birthday, kind of already a big deal. This is the start of the Aries season where their sun lies. And I think that there's people out there who are wondering if they are at kind of like this crucial point in their life, what kinds of crucial things should they be focusing on?
Well, 40 and every 0-digit year, the beginning of the new decade, is a real turning point anyways, and from numerology standpoint. The 8-year and the 9-year, whether it's 8, 9, 18, 19, 28, 29, 38, 39, those are very, very transitional. The 8 years, you notice what doesn't work for you anymore. And then the 9 years, you let go of them. And so then when you reach the 0 year, it's a little bit like a holding pattern. Now, also, the 30s are all about experimenting about yourself. And I always say that the 20s is like sitting on a 2-legged bench. The 30s is like sitting on a 3-legged stool. 40s is like sitting on a 4-legged chair. So there's this stability that comes from the 40s. And it's being more comfortable with yourself. And so with all of this about loving yourself and new beginnings and finally getting out of the 9-year and using that resiliency, it's about really learning to be more comfortable and kind of settling in. And as much as we think, we're raring to go for this new one, again, it takes to about 41 before you really start to see the product of the new beginnings.
Sure.
Because in that 0 year, again, it's like a little bit of a holding pattern, but a welcome one, because the 8 and 9 years are crazy. You're, again, very aware of what doesn't really work. 9 years, you're letting go. And so it's like, oh my goodness, I made it out of the burning forest. And so it's a time to sit on that four-legged chair, get really comfortable, and think, okay, what do I want to do next? And then those who are going into their 50s, just for the record, 50s is where you bedazzle your chair.
I just turned 40 myself, so I'm kind of like listening to these things and feel like it's close enough into this time, you know?
Yeah.
And I can kind of feel like, oh my gosh, okay, like it's here. What do I do? But sometimes it's not always about doing things. And when we're in like the cycle that we're in right now with all this Pisces energy, and we're finishing things and getting comfortable with just the idea of things ending, just those things right there, like being sad that things are done and over with, like those are all natural processes to moving forward. But it's kind of like what you were saying to Kate out there at these eclipse times, we take a step back.
Yes.
In order to move forward, that there are things that we go back and deal with, spend time on, spend energy on, so that we can move forward with things flowing maybe a little better.
And that is actually the nature of the Chiron involvement. Not so much directly because the eclipse is happening with the Chiron involvement, that's what's bringing that sort of slingshot feeling where you have to pull backwards and go backwards and then ultimately let go and go forward. But yeah, it's an amazing time. You know, when you turn 40, I think it's wonderful because you finally start to get comfortable with yourself. You know, there's that four-legged chair where it doesn't rock.
They say that in your 30s, people start taking you more seriously, but I really feel like it's in your 40s.
Well, if you think about the 30s and sitting on a three-legged stool, it can tip over in any direction. So we're experimenting with who do I want to be. In the 40s, we figured that out, and we're like, okay, now I'm going to be it. So now I'm going to actually be who I say I want to be.
And I understand the 50 with the 5-pointed star. You just like put stars all over everything.
Well, and five is all about self-expression. It's all about creative endeavors and taking chances, you know. So, like I said, that's when you bedazzle your chair. And then at 60s, you say, what am I going to do with my chair? You know, so every decade has its own little thing. But when you get into those 0 years, it's really welcoming because there is almost a calming in some ways. But I'm not sure how calm with all of this activity going on. Those of you who are turning 40 right now may not be as calm as for some of the other people who turned 40 at other times.
Sure, yeah. And that's part of the luck of the draw, kind of.
Absolutely.
We have another donation that came in here during the Cosmic Community today. Thank you so much to Healing Spaces for giving your $77 donation, which was matched. So that was $154 donation today. Thank you so much, Healing Spaces from Bend, and enjoy your 40th birthday, my dear. So you're an Aquarius. And one of the listeners that is a normal listener that I kind of pre-selected a group of listeners today to send in some questions for us. So we weren't quite going to do the call in. We'll figure that out for the next time that you're in, because I really want random people and I really want random calls. And that sounds like so much fun. We'll work our way to that. But a pre-selected group of people I got questions from today. But we have an Aquarian out there.
I think it's funny you call the Aquarian a normal listener because normal?
She would like to know if, EILEEN, you have any special guidance to share with, I'm sorry, I was thinking Aquarians. She is a Cancer. My goodness.
Well, that was close.
Yeah. Cancerians this year. Okay. Got your question out,
Do you have a
Melissa.
full birthday?
This, I do not have a birthday from her.
Okay.
She was just wondering if there was special guidance to share with Cancerians this year.
Okay. So the Cancers, as I talked earlier about when we were talking about the soup, and how this Aries energy for Cancers is kind of challenging because Cancers are like, I just want to take my time. I just want to sit and kind of be in the past. And it's just not happening. You know, that Chiron influence is saying, okay, you know, I talk about Chiron being like having your coattails stuck on something behind you, and you have to back up and release that. And so there's an attachment to the past. Well, Cancer, that's their middle name. And so it's challenging for them.
It's part of the comfort and security of that Cancer lifestyle, that desire for just to be secure.
Plus, for the last 14 years, Pluto's been in Capricorn for the Cancers, and it's been a lot about letting go. So Cancer's like, really? More letting go? But the good news is if they really understand that with this Aries energy, as opposed to the Pluto energy, because Pluto is just like break it down, let it go, loss, endings. I mean, it's been tough for the Cancers over the last 12, 15 years.
It has.
But the Aries brings the promise of resiliency. And Cancers grow up to be Leos. Cancers have other influences. And if she probably has a little bit of Leo in there somewhere, if she'll lean into that and say, hey, the Leo part will say, well, what about me? And as soon as she's willing to do that, then all that Aries energy can come along and say, yeah, what about you? And so then the Cancer's like, okay, what do I really need? And the nice thing about Cancers is they're very intuitive.
Yes.
They're very creative. And when they can use a little resiliency, maybe they can be artistic or they could do something that makes them feel good. Also, Jupiter's in Taurus right now. And Taurus to Cancer is really good stuff. And even the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is in Taurus. And so there are positive changes happening. It's the opportunity to expand and to nurture. The nice thing about astrology is there's planets in all these different signs. And so even though there might be one thing that's coming in and saying, oh, this is kind of challenging, there might be something else that's going, yeah, but look, this is really good for you. And so if you can remember, that's the advantage of having a reading, because you get to look at the whole picture and not just little parts of it, and to realize that, yeah, there are these challenges, but there's some really good opportunities that's happening at the same time. And there's a waking up, and there's a maybe coming out of their shell a little bit.
That's what you mean. Like when you say lean into something, like you lean into a certain area of your chart because that energy is going to provide you with something that's going to help you move forward or come to closure or whatever.
Yeah. None of us have all our planets in all one sign. None of us. We always have, even if it's just the bigger planets, the generational planets that everybody your age has. But I mean, some people, all their personality planets can be pretty close. Like you said, you have a stellium, which means lots of planets in the same sign. But we always have something else to lean into. And that, again, that's the advantage of coming to an astrologer like myself, who can see your whole chart and can help you learn how to use other parts of yourself, because that might be the stuff that's working.
I know that I've looked up recipes before and been like, what? There's ginger in that soup?
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly.
And you try and make that soup without that ginger? No. Doesn't taste the same.
No, the blending of all of our planets and all the different signs is what makes us unique and wonderful.
It's like the spice of life for sure. So how much of astrology, EILEEN, do you think is the hard study of the signs and what they represent and the houses and how they work? And how much of astrology do you feel like is intuition?
Well, I think there's a lot of validity to knowing the foundation of what astrology really is. I think it's really helpful to have a foundation, but then when you mix it with your intuition, that's when you when it stops being carrots, potatoes, celery, onions, and broth, and it becomes soup, because you're able to blend it. It's the blending of all of those things together is what really helps it. But you got to know the basics in order to do that. You got to know what celery tastes like and what potatoes taste like, and then what it tastes like when you put them together. But to be able to use I think everybody should, if you're going to learn astrology, you should also learn clairvoyance, because it's a fabulous blend. And to be able to use your intuition about, well, what does this really mean? To be able to kind of go just outside that box just a little bit, not just be, well, this has to be this because that the book said if I have, this planet and this sign that this is how I am.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind of that way, but it's also blended. Nobody is just that one piece. We are that blend of all of it.
That's where astrology can become like a little limiting, or, you can get kind of stuck in these ideas where, you realize that every situation is different and requires the different blend of spices to put a flavor on something.
And, the typical thing is when people will say, well, I'm a Cancer and he's a Libra, and the books say we don't get along. It's like, well, when you're talking about sun sign astrology, that's just your brain. If you're looking at somebody, people will oftentimes say, well, can you guess what sign I am? And I'm like, well, I'm not a mind reader, so I don't know how you think, but I could probably tell you what sign your Mars is in, because that's your physical body and how you move and demonstrate. Or I could tell you where your Mercury is, because that's how you speak. So a lot of times when we see somebody, we're not seeing their sun sign. We're actually seeing these other influences. So sun sign astrology definitely limiting.
So is intuition clairvoyance, or is intuition a part of clairvoyance?
It's synonymous with each other. Intuition is clairvoyance. Intuition is thought derived through feeling. And so when you talk about all the different clair abilities, those are all emotionally based talents talents. And so intuition is clairvoyance. It's the same, basically.
And then there's different types of clairvoyance.
9 different kinds.
You've talked about clara audio.
That's when you hear stuff.
And then
there's 9 of them.
So many of them. So lots of different ways to use our intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that, say, I just don't know, like where these messages are coming from. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of different conduits for those things to come through. Thank you so much for listening to our Fund Drive special today here in the Cosmic Community Astrology. If you love listening to astrology on the radio, well, you have to do it here because as far as I know, this is the only astrology program in Oregon that's on a radio station. And so thank you for being a supporter. And if you would like to support the station, you can do that. Just give us a call, 541-322-0863. Make your donation online via kpov.org, or come on in and have a treat. If you come in just right after the 5 o'clock hour, you may be able to shake EILEEN's hand. That's when the show gets done. You come in, have a little treat, and give your gift then, if you are able to do so and would like to support the station. I just want to get to a couple more of our listener questions.
Go for it.
I think that is a really good way for us to give back to this crew of people who take care of us. So the next question is from Trudy. Trudy asks, EILEEN, do you see any major Earth change events happening in the U.S. based on the Aries Equinox chart?
Talking about actually Earth changes.
She's a Virgo.
Yeah. Well, she's an Earth sign. I tend to. Number one, I am not a doom gloom kind of girl when it comes to astrology. And so I tend to stay away from, California is going to slip into the ocean because of this transit. Weather can be determined largely with Mars. Like when Mars goes through a water sign, we tend to get a lot of moisture, which you might notice we've had a lot of that lately.
And Mars is in Pisces, right?
In Pisces. Yep. When it goes into Aries, the sun will come out tomorrow, again, and it will have a lot more radiance. But as far as physical changes on the planet, earth slides and volcanoes, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, there are some people that really get into that, but I kind of think Mother Nature's got her own plan, and it happens when it needs to. I don't know that astrologically, or at least I choose not to necessarily focus on those things so much.
Sure. Something that's coming to me is just you mentioned that conjunction in the latter parts of April in Taurus between Jupiter and Uranus. And because they're in an Earth sign, that may have some residual effect on the other Earth signs?
Possibly. And so, if it's going to happen, it probably will be. But it also could happen. You got to figure that, if you're talking about volcanoes, since we live there, I would think that would be something in fire. If there's a fire and an earth, a lot of activity happening at the same time, maybe that might bring that to light. I'm not going to make that prediction, just because I don't feel that's something where my brain goes or my intuition goes. But for the earth signs, they're definitely going to be shaking and moving. Yeah,
I can see that. I mean, just with that Taurus matchup right there. And I think we have time for one more question. We really appreciate you being tuned in today. And if you want to get a hold of EILEEN, she is available. And how can people get a hold of you if they would like to talk to you after this radio show today?
Well, they can call me at 541-389-1159. They, again, will get the new perspective when they call. Please realize I do screen my calls, so you'll get that answering machine every single time. But if I'm there, I will pick it up. If I'm in session at the time, I'll call you back later. Or you can email me at oneheart, that's ONEHEART, at bencable.com.
Last question is from an avid listener, Mindy. She wants to know the financial outlook for Sagittarius for 2024. I like this one. It applies to me, but I didn't screen this one just because it applies to me. I want Mindy to know.
Well, Jupiter's going into Gemini in May, and that's an opposition for Sagittarius, and it should stimulate it in that way. Also, Venus going into Aries, that will help Venus's love and money. Mercury, when it retrogrades, is going to retrograde through Aries, and that's all fire. So I think that you're going to see lots of little things, lots of little bits of things. When we're in Gemini, you might find that there's new ways to make money. Something different, not your normal, which would make Sagittarius very happy. They don't like to do the normal.
Little side jobs.
And
even.
A little bit of this and a little bit of that. When Venus travels through Gemini, money comes through in a lot of different directions. So I think it's going to be a really positive time. Plus, Pluto in Sagittarius and Pluto in Aquarius now is really in harmony to Sagittarius. And so those slower influences are going to be in your favor. So I'm going to say yes, that 2024 is going to be a good financial year for Sagittarius and other fire signs.
That sounds good. All this Pisces stuff has been kind of tough on Sagittarius lately. So having a nice,
patience,
positive outlook really helps, EILEEN. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today, EILEEN. I hope you will consider doing this again sometime.
Thank you. I've had a wonderful time. Please invite me back.
Oh my gosh, yes. And also, we need to talk about maybe getting Bend, Oregon's first monthly astrology night started out at some cafe or something. I have this dream like Rick Levine does up in Redmond, Washington. He has his astrology nights, get together once a month on Fridays and have coffee and present astrology live somewhere to people. That's maybe the next dream that I'm going to start working on for this upcoming Aries Equinox.
I think you should do that because I'm 71 years old and I'm in bed by 8 o'clock.
EILEEN, you always tell me no, but it's okay.
Not always.
Because it empowers
I'm here today.
me. Yes, you're right.
I'm more of an afternoon girl.
Thank you for saying yes today. And thank you for all of your knowledge and wisdom. And everybody is super thankful for everything that you offer to the local community. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for being tuned into the cosmic community today. I hope you were able to glean some good information off of this chat. And I'll be back next week at the normal time, 4:30 on Tuesday. And this show is going to be archived everywhere, so you can pass it along for people. And those folks that had their questions answered can listen to that again, because I know those answers are loaded. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Community Podcast. More can be found at kpov.org/thecosmiccommunity.